How's it going, everyone? It is Anime Outlet, and this is part 5 of What If Deku was the son of Mount Lady. And now, let's begin. Izuku and Nejire both watch as Bakugo's head falls off of the rest of his body as the two body parts fall down to the ground with a thump. As both of them hit the ground, Izuku stares on at it as one of his best friends since childhood, just right in front of him, was just killed. Izuku didn't understand any of this. Why was this happening? Nejire wasn't much different. As she would be staring at it, she would cover her mouth as tears would start to flow out of her eyes. Some of the other classmates watching the scene unfold would all just be standing there in shock. They couldn't believe it. There, one of the most powerful of their classmates had just died. They didn't know why. Why was this happening to them? Why? They just couldn't get that one word out of their heads. All of a sudden, however, a shining yellow figure would appear in the doorway with a frown on his face, something far from his usual smile. As this figure would be All Might. All Might would be staring down with a figure of disgust towards the Nomu before he would end up realizing what would end up happening and what had just occurred. As All Might seeing this, he would rush down, grabbing all of the students, making sure that nothing were to happen to them. Grabbing all of them, he would then place them up by the exit before looking at them with a grim look. "Get out of here." But All Might, Izuku tried to say, for All Might would only shake his head. "Get out of here!" With a fierce glare once again from All Might, Zuke would nod his head, opening the doors as his classmates would follow. All Might then stared down towards the Nomu before walking down the stairs, cracking his knuckles and stretching out his neck. "This is going to be the last time you end up hiding these students, you hear me?" All Might would say. However, the blue-haired person would only laugh. "Ah, All Might, you finally decided to show your ugly self," the person would say, violently scratching their neck over and over and over again. All Might would glare towards the person. "What's the point of this? They're only kids," he would say, motioning towards the body of Bakugo, which would only cause Shigaraki to laugh even more. "Oh, what's the matter? They'll still be heroes in a couple years anyway." All Might would jump towards the brainless thing that was still holding Bakugo's body, punching it right in the chest with such a hard punch that it completely went right through its stomach. As All Might is far stronger in this mode than he was in canon. Sure, in canon My Hero Academia and in the anime, All Might was under extreme stress to protect his students, causing him to go just plus ultra. However, with the rage of one of his students dying, this caused All Might's power to be fully released, causing him to grasp it further, going farther beyond plus ultra, punching right through the Nomu, as the Nomu would end all down, its gut was missing, as the wind and air would go into it. However, it would quickly regenerate, as the Nomu would then give off a screech in pain and anger before rushing towards All Might once again, punching All Might right in the head. However, All Might didn't budge at all. He was far too angry to let such a brainless and mindless thing take him down. As All Might would be staring at this Omu, he would start to pace back and forth before jumping at it, punching it right in the head, as its beak would then shatter, as parts of it would then slowly crumble off of its beak, as All Might and stare at it once more, slamming it down into the ground, grabbing onto its brain and yanking it out of the socket that it was sitting in. Shigaraki, seeing this, would motion towards Kirogiri to let them go, as Kirogiri would then open up a portal, so they would then both step through it, escaping. So All Might then punch the Nomu one more time as the brainless, mindless thing would fall down, now just a body or a shell of what it had once been. All Might would then sit down at the steps, staring towards All Might or Bakugo's body. He was too late. If only he had just been a couple seconds faster, he could have saved one of his students. If only. That's all he could think of. As finally the rest of the heroes would end up arriving, along with the rest of the police force and ambulances. As they would arrive, they would see Bakugo's body quickly putting it in a body bag before quickly rushing off in an ambulance. As All Might and just looking on towards it, I can't believe it, seeing as the ambulance would then pull off. As we now got a couple hours, as Aizawa would walk into the classroom. Look, I'm sorry for what happened. You all have 2 weeks off to train for the UA Sports Festival. That's all I can say. Aizawa would slowly mutter out those words, as the class, still in a dreary and gloomy mood, would nod their heads in acceptance. As they would end up leaving UA, they would walk back to their houses just with a saddened look on all of their faces. Their expressions were a look of just mourning. They couldn't understand just what exactly was happening. Someone who had been around them for only 3 weeks had become so close to them, and it was just so weird to have that just taken away from them within moments. As we now forward 2 weeks of Izuku training with Nejire, with the death of Bakugo, they would both train harder than ever, with just the hopes of meeting each other in the finals of the UA Sports Festival. As they would walk into UA, they would sit down, as Aizawa would then direct everyone to get down into the bus bay, get on the bus, and head to the Coliseum, where once they would arrive, they would head into the locker rooms, get changed into their sports UA Sports Festival uniforms, as they would then walk out onto the field, ready for the first event. As Izuku would be stretching, Nejire would walk out before just nodding her head towards him, as would both give each other a look that just said they're going to do their absolute best in honor of their best friend Bakugo, who had fallen. As Midnight would step up to the podium, she would then proudly exclaim, "Good morning, UA and all of the visitors and watchers. We may now begin the UA Sports Festival with the first event, a race. There's going to be 3 obstacles, which I'm not going to tell you all what they're going to be. Just contestants, please go into that hallway over there," she would say, pointing towards the direction of the hallway. They would all go into the hallway, as Izuku, now in the hallway, would then start stretching out his legs. As the doors would end up opening, Izuku would rush out before getting a safe distance away from everyone, where he would then just get himself bigger, causing his legs to become bigger as well. Izuku would start to take long, massive strides, easily surpassing anyone that was in front of him. As Izuku would see a 0-pointer in front of him, he would turn his complete arm wood before throwing a branch towards the 0-pointer. As it would land, it would hit into the 0-pointer's head, where roots would start growing all throughout it. Izuku would then pull himself up onto the 0-pointer before kicking off of it, giving himself even more momentum. As a massive tree would sprout out of the head of the 0-pointer, Izuku would catch himself on one of the branches, swinging him over completely past the second 2 events with insane strength, and getting first. As Nejire would not be so far behind, kind of following what Izuku was doing, but flying using her energy quirk to get up towards the top, and would propel herself off of the 0-pointer, allowing for her to have such momentum she would end up passing, getting second. Todoroki, not so far behind, would be in third. As the rest of the contestants would end up passing, we now end up seeing Midnight walk onto the podium. And now, let's begin the second event. It's going to be something called a cavalry battle. As Midnight would then hand out the ribbons, so whoever is first has the most points, second has the second most, third has the third most, and so on and so forth. Create teams of 4, you'll have 5 minutes to do so, and once those 5 minutes are up, 30 minutes to collect as many points as possible. Only 4 teams will end up passing, she would end up saying, as Izuku would immediately look over towards Nedre, who would nod her head, signifying that they were now on a team together. With them now on a team, Izuku would look for some other people to join. Izuku would end up getting Uraraka to join the team, as along with Tsuyu Asui. With them now on a team, all the 5 minutes would end up ending, as we now see the cavalry battle beginning. Izuku would be on top, just looking around, wondering where everyone was. As all of this and everyone would jump towards him. Izuku, seeing this, would end up staring on as seeing a massive crowd running towards him, as he did have the 1 million point headband. However, before they could do anything, Izuku would place his hand calmly onto the ground, with all of his teammates bending their knees so Izuku could do so. As soon as Izuku did this, a massive tree would form, where Izuku, at just the center of it, would go all the way up to the top, where this massive tree would be so blinding with a maze of leaves that anyone who was capable of climbing up it couldn't find Izuku in the maze. So, with the 30 minutes slowly passing, Izuku's team would end up getting first, going with a more passive style of play. So, once everyone would go to the waiting rooms, Midnight would announce that the 1v1 tournament, or the final part of the UA Sports Festival, was now beginning. Izuku would look down towards his fists one last time before walking out, as he was the first match to begin with. However, before Izuku walked out onto the arena, one of his classmates would end up stopping him. This would, of course, be Ojiro. Izuku, watch that kid. I wouldn't respond to anything he says. I think he has some sort of brainwashing quirk. Oh, really? Thanks, Ojiro, Izuku would say before walking out. Izuku would stare towards the purple-haired boy standing in front of him as the match would then begin. Izuku would create a tree in the ground after touching it, as the roots would end up breaking through the cracks of the ground before a massive root would end up jumping up out towards Shinso, barely missing his head, as Shinso would end up seeing this jagged root right at his head, as a branch would then grow, wrapping itself around Shinso's neck, as almost immediately Shinso couldn't move at all, not being strong enough to break the massive branch that was surrounding his neck. As the branch would slowly grow bigger and bigger, Shinso would start to get choked by the branch, slowly suffocating. He would tap on the branch, signifying that he was done, he was out. Midnight would then announce that Izuku was the winner. As Izuku would smile, he would say, well, but now on to the next round, I guess. As Izuku would then be in the second round against Shoto Todoroki. Izuku, going into this match, would know it was going to be a very tough one, as he was versing probably the second strongest kid in the class, besides him, of course. So as Izuku would end up going onto the arena, he would stare over towards Todoroki before he ended up getting into a stance. As the match would begin, Todoroki would send a massive iceberg just right on towards Izuku. However, Izuku would end up growing as just a massive size before just calmly flicking the iceberg, shattering it into millions of little icicles. As Izuku would stare down towards Todoroki, Todoroki would send up a massive iceberg once again towards Izuku. However, Izuku in his giant form was far too powerful for any of this ice to even hurt him. So as the ice kept coming and coming, Izuku kept shattering it over and over and over and over again. It was clearly no match for him. So as Todoroki started to get tired and just all the frostbite would start taking him over, Todoroki would end up collapsing with ice taking control of his body. As quickly, Recovery Girl and her volunteers quickly come and grab onto Todoroki, taking him off towards her office, as he was quickly succumbing to the frostbite because of the usage of his ice quirk and not using his fire quirk. After that, the semi-finals would be a breeze, as Izuku would calmly take out Ida within an instant, tripping him with one of his roots, causing him to fall out of bounds. as we now see Izuku and Nejire standing across from one another in the finals. "Good luck," Izuku would say. "And as to you," she would reply. Izuku would crack his knuckles as the match would then begin, as both of them would rush towards each other, as their fists would then collide. And that is where part 5 of What If Deku Was the Son of Mount Lady is coming to an end. I hope you all did enjoy it, and if you did, please consider subscribing, as you can be notified when I do upload other videos and when the other parts of this series that do end up coming out. I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.